Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is SP Jimmy, and today we are going to be looking at every single power that is able to either resurrect you as the player or somebody who got face planted in the middle of your mission. It's every single power I could find. We're going to go through them all and we're going to see which ones we think are worth taking, which ones we think we could maybe skip depending on who it's available to. And to start us off here, we have these two powers here, Renewal of Light and Resuscitation. Now, these two are available at the pay-to-win vendor underneath Atlas in Atlas Park off to the side. You should know where they are. Please, I hope everyone knows who that person is. Between the two of them, you want to get Renewal of Light because you can see here, Resuscitation is only going to resurrect you, and Renewal of Light is actually going to cause a little explosion that knocks back the enemies around you and disorients them. It doesn't tell you that in the game, so make sure that you go for Renewal of Light, and then everybody can have their own form of resurrection, okay? I believe that it costs some money in the pay-to-win vendor. It's 1 million or 10 million. It doesn't say here on the Paragon Wiki, but you can also get, I believe, one of those for free just for getting a debt badge and getting your own version of the resurrection, and then you can get those for free, Renewal of Light. Definitely worth it over Resuscitation. Flame Mastery, which is, and I just kind of went down in order, well, no particular order, but in order of the archetypes that were listed, and then I picked out the ones that have resurrection effects. So Rise of the Phoenix. Now this would only be for a blaster because this is Flame Mastery. Rise of the Phoenix is a player-based area of effect. It does fire damage. It's a self-res, and it's special because it's going to blast them, knock them back, and you can even slot that with sudden acceleration, knock back to knock down, so that it knocks the enemies down around you, which is very helpful. And as a blaster, you're probably going to be sucking the floor pretty often, so why not get yourself a heal? Yep, knocks him back. It's awesome. You get half hit points and half endurance, and it will leave you invulnerable for a short amount of time. Takes some pretty good mods. It also takes damage mods as well as stuns, healing, and endurance modification. Go into damage. Why not? You jump in, you're the first one in, you get face planted, and then you just boom, Rise of the Phoenix. Anyways, that's not a good strategy. Don't do that, but it's better than being dead on the floor. Next, we have Dark Armor. Now, this is available to a few archetypes, so for the Brute, Scrapper, and Tanker. And I noticed here on the webpage as well, they don't cover Sentinel, but I would imagine that they're somewhat, I know they're different, but I believe Sentinels get the self-res. I'm not sure. I'm only going to speak to the ones that I can see here. So for Brutes, Scrappers, and Tankers, you get Soul Transfer, a player-based area of effect, moderate damage that's negative, foe disorient, and self-res. So similar to the Fire Rise of the Phoenix, only that you do negative damage and it's moderate instead of minor. For the Stalker version, it's basically the same. Yeah, looks like it's the same for Stalkers. Would you take this with a Dark build? I think that you should. Darks are weird. They, depending if, I don't know about Stalkers as much. I guess Stalkers, you're able to keep your armors on more than you are with like a Scrapper or a Tank where you have to kind of like dance with your armors off and on. I'm not a big fan of Cloak of Fear or Oppressive Gloom. The fear and the disorient doesn't make that much of a difference to me when I'm in there. And it takes a lot of endurance. So Soul Transfer, I suppose that you could, only in that it's an extra attack on the off chance that you do get knocked down. You're going to be able to hit them back and get back in the game without much downtime. Here we have Fiery Aura. This is available for tankers and for brutes. And it's also Sentinels, but same thing. It's different. But for tankers and for brutes, you get Rise of the Phoenix, player-based area of effect, extreme damage over time, foe disorient, knockback, and self-res as well. And it looks like you're coming back with same thing, half your hit points, half your endurance, and it's taking the same set categories as the Blaster Ancillary Flame Mastery would be taking as well. On Fire, I think initially you need it as you're leveling up, because if you're doing Fire, you're probably leveling through, I would imagine, AE, right, is what you're doing. And you're going to die a lot. So like you take Consume early on and you probably drop it later, and you take Rise of the Phoenix early on and then you probably drop it later. But once you get to 50 and you get all of your other stuff spec'd out, you probably won't need it anymore. I would always have it in my back pocket just in case. I think it's better to have it and not need it, and than not have it, not deal damage. This is regeneration, and this is regeneration for the brute and the scrapper, and then for the stalker as well, and they both get revive, and it just says self res, nothing else. You don't get any extreme effects from this, which is kind of sad because you would think it gives you plus recovery or regen or something for an amount of time if you were to die. With regen, you're able to get your hit points back so quickly, and that's the whole point of regen, is just to replace your hit points, right? Replace your hit points. So I would imagine that replacing hit points means if you die, you replace it with revive. Would you not? And it's the same thing that you're doing with all of your other powers, essentially. So I would say go ahead and take it on regen. I hope that you don't die with it, and with Moment of Glory, you should be fine, but again, I just think it's better to have it and not need it if you are a regen. If you're doing, I would say PvP or something, you probably don't need it because you're not going to survive through a revive like that. For willpower, this is for brutes, scrappers, and tanks, and then stalkers also get resurgence as their self-res. Self-res plus recovery plus damage plus 2 hit plus recharge, and that is for both of them, and that is what I'm talking about. When you get the self-res, you need some form of edge, right? Plus recovery, plus damage, plus 2 hit, plus recharge. Take that on willpower. It's not just a res, it's a buff as you get back in, and so much of willpower is like auto and quick and easy to get on anyway, so you might as well get it. Should you fall in battle, you revive from the brink of death, most of your hit points, half your endurance, and XP debt protection for 90 seconds, and then all the buffs that we mentioned before. But the only set categories that you can use are endurance modification aside from the IO sets, and I would imagine that you would only put well, I don't want to say what you would put in resurgence, but I would imagine you could just put some recharge reduction, some increased attack rate. I'm not sure which set from endurance modification would give you a bonus, but if you're going to be using it, you probably won't be using it because you're going to survive forever if your willpower anyways, but it does give you that awesome buff there. Dark Mastery. Now, this is a ancillary pool, an epic pool. This is for defenders and corruptors, and you get soul transfer. So it's a self-res, and it has a special effect. If you die, you can perform soul transfer, sucking the life force of all foes around you to bring yourself back from the brink of death. So you need enemies around you. The more foes nearby, the more life is restored to you. Drained foes are left disoriented. The dark effect of the soul transfer will actually leave you invulnerable for a brief time. Debt protection, there must be at least one foe nearby so that you can resurrect yourself. Now, you need 2 other powers to get soul transfer, and if you're going for 2 other powers here in Dark Mastery, I don't think you're doing that to get the self-res. I think you're doing that to get soul drain instead. I don't like that you have to have other enemies around you to be able to resurrect yourself, so for here, I'm going to say no on soul transfer. Dark Miasma, which is different than the controller one, which we'll get to a little bit later. But Dark Miasma, so this is for defenders, corruptors, and masterminds. Now they get Howling Twilight, and Howling Twilight is probably one of it. Well, I would say it is the best res in the game, and it's the best, one of the best attacks in the game because I see it as a targeted AoE that does minor negative damage with disorient, minus regen, minus recharge, minus speed, and it also just so happens to be an ally res. So you're gonna be taking Howling Twilight, definitely. Okay. You need it. It's like you saw in my macros video, I would do power boost before this to get even bigger effect from it. It's amazing, and it's a good opener in almost any situation. Get Howling Twilight, and you're going to use it all the time, not just to revive people. Half the time I use it, I don't even know that people are dead around me. Or if you do like an MSR, Howling Twilight is how people are getting resurrected because it's part of your attack chain, and you're resurrecting anybody who happens to be around you, and it's awesome. How many people can it resurrect? I don't know what the cap is. It doesn't say what the cap is, but I know you can hit a few good people with it. All right. Now, Nature Affinity is for controllers, corruptors, and masterminds, and it has Rebirth. Ranged ally res, so you're resurrecting somebody else. They also get a heal over time. There's a special, and they get +3 to the bloom effect, which is making your heals even more effective on them. So should they go down, you're able to heal them a lot easier when you bring them back up. can either greatly heal a conscious ally for a great amount over time, or it can revive a fallen ally with a large amount of health and endurance and cause them to recover health over time. It also grants 3 strikes of bloom. So it does. They don't even have to be dead for you to use rebirth, and you can just start healing them a lot stronger. It's going to give you like kind of like absorb pain, but without the downside of having to hurt yourself. You just get an extra heal with them. That I would definitely say take rebirth if you're on a nature affinity. You're going to need it. Pain Domination gives you the Conduit of Pain, close ally res, self plus damage, plus 2 hit, plus recharge, plus recovery, and plus special. So it looks like that's actually giving you the buff. You revive a fallen ally by becoming a conduit of pain and transferring the pain that was inflicted upon them back upon your enemies. This will briefly empower you, increasing your damage output, recovery rate, attack rate, and chance to hit. After a minute, the effect will wear off, leaving you weakened for 30 seconds. Your damage, attack rate, and chance to hit will all be reduced during this period. What the heck? Now, remembering that masterminds can't resurrect their own pets with this, so you can't use it as like a pseudo build-up for yourself. Basically, you would have to let somebody die and then, or somebody is an idiot in order for you to take advantage of this. Is that worth it? I don't know. And when you resurrect somebody, you're not going to be in a position, well, you could be in a position where you're still in the middle of the fight. And I think that's the best time to use Conduit of Pain is in the middle of the fight and then start unleashing as much damage as you can. But when else do we resurrect people? Is when we're teleporting them back or we're doing it after the fight and then you're not able to take advantage of that buff. So I think you can take it or leave it. Maybe not on a mastermind, but on a defender, I guess you probably would have to. Or sorry, on a corruptor, I guess you probably would have to. Now, Poison has the Elixir of Life. It is a close ally res, plus res to toxic, plus damage, plus 2 hit, plus recharge, and plus recovery for your ally. It's going to make them sick after a little while, and get really weak after about 90 seconds. And I do not believe that Elixir of Life is worth taking it on a poison, no matter where you are. Because with poison, you're doing envenom, you're doing weaken, maybe neurotoxic breath, paralytic poison. You're doing some debuffs. You're not really getting antidote, I don't think. Alkaloid is pretty bad. So why are you getting Elixir of Life, which is also going to cause them to hurl over and vomit pretty soon anyways? Radiation Emission has the mutation ability. It's a close ally res, plus recharge, plus recovery, plus damage, plus 2 hit. And I think that you should take mutation if you are going with a rad build, because not only are you debuffing enemies, you're also healing your team a lot. You have accelerate metabolism. They shouldn't be dying anyways, but I do see people take mutation. I always appreciate it when I see a mutation coming in, because I'm like, oh sweet, I'm also going to get plus damage and plus 2 hit as I come back in here and throw out all my AoEs and everything that I can, because I know that this guy's going to heal me and he's got my back. Downside is you have to target somebody. Thermal Radiation, so this is for defenders, controllers, corruptors, and masterminds, gets Power of the Phoenix. It is an ally res, special targeted AoE, extreme damage over time, fire, foe disorient, and knockback. So it is dealing damage to the enemy, but you need a downed ally to be able to do that. Revives a fallen ally. The fiery resurrection blasts nearby foes with an explosion and knocks them down and disorients them. Your ally will revive with most of their hit points and endurance and will be invulnerable for a brief amount of time. It's a pretty strong res, and if you're going for thermal just to be a healer and that is what you want, and you also want the shields and all that, Power of the Phoenix is going to give you that little bit of offensive edge. Forge is great. It's a great set no matter what. And I feel like Power of the Phoenix, if you don't take it, you're going to be missing something that they would be expecting from you. So I would say yes. Empathy, right? The golden child of healing and bringing hit points back has Resurrect. But after all the other cool Resurrects that we've seen so far, what do we see? It's an ally res. That's all that it does. It says resurrects a fallen ally with full hit points and endurance. The resurrected target is left free from XP debt. Boo! Boo, Empathy. You're supposed to be the cool one, and you don't even give them like plus max HP or something when you bring them back, or plus res or plus defense or something. You have all these other buffs, but the resurrect is like, I don't even have it on my Empathy, right? I don't have absorb pain, resurrect, it's not worth it. That everybody else should be able to resurrect them in better ways than I could. So why would you take resurrect on empathy? Boo. Primal Forces Mastery is an ancillary power pool for controllers and dominators. Oh, how did this one get in here? Never mind. This one doesn't even have a res. Behind the scenes. Fire Mastery has Rise of the Phoenix, Self Res, and Special. So this is for controllers and dominators. If you're defeated, you can rise from the ashes. The fiery resurrection blasts nearby foes. Same thing that we've seen before. Half your hit points, half your endurance. If you don't have any other form of res, you can take it. For a controller and dominator, you might overpull some aggro at times. Are you going to be in the middle of the mob when that happens? I don't think so as much. I would say focus more on locking them down and your own survivability more than assuming that you're going to die for controllers and dominators, because you're probably going to die anyways. You might as well go all out. I'm not sure. That being said, maybe you do need Rise of the Phoenix, at least initially, until you get your build set so that you can come back, because you'll probably be dying a lot until you learn to control your aggro. Darkness Affinity is the secondary for controllers only. Okay, so a little bit different. They get Fade that the other Darkness secondary doesn't get, but they still do get Howling Twilight, and the same things occur for this occurred for what we said before. You're going to take Howling Twilight. It's more of an attack than it is a resurrection, and it is awesome. So definitely add that to your set, controllers. Heat Mastery is an ancillary power pool for masterminds. They have Rise of the Phoenix. Now, as a mastermind, you should be able to use your bodyguard mode well enough. You probably don't have any other form of self-resurrection, so you could take this. But the thing is, if you do self-resurrect, even if you knocked your opponents back, you're still going to have to throw all your guys out, and I think they're going to overwhelm you during that time, unless you're really quick in getting it back out there. But I would think that masterminds are able to control the flow of battle a little bit better to where they wouldn't need this. However, it is nice that you would want Fireball and Bonfire. If you have the extra set, you can go for Rise of the Phoenix just to be on the safe side, but I don't think that you're going to need that long term. Luminous Aura for the Peacebringers, so they have the Restore Essence, and same thing we see here as with the Empathy Resurrection, it's just a self-res, so I really don't think that it's worth it. It just brings you back from the dead. It doesn't do anything, and we have temporary powers and other things that we could do to fill that slot instead. For the War Shades, they have the Stygian Return, which is a self-res, but it has a special. So their self-res, should you fall in battle, your Stygian Circle can drain the life force of all foes around you to bring you back from the brink of death. The more foes around, the more hit points and endurance that you get. It'll leave you invulnerable, but you do need one nearby foe, so I don't think that this one is going to be worth it either. You could probably use it, and I'm sure there's areas where you die, initially or early on, and you need a self-res to get back in there, but then why wouldn't you just use Renewal of Light that you bought earlier, right? Why wouldn't you just do something like that instead of dedicating a whole power to it? And I would be remiss not to mention the Medicine power pool, which has Resuscitate. And I cannot imagine what drives people to take Resuscitate, but I see it more often than not. And it's so funny because you have to take 2 other abilities, do you not? You have to have 2 other heals to be able to get Resuscitate. And I can see that if you're going for Field Medic. Thank you so much to everybody who takes Resuscitate and doesn't have to, and takes Recall Friend and doesn't have to. And it's happened a lot of times. I think it's awesome, but if I were to do this, I would do maybe Injection, Aid Self, and then Field Medic. Or maybe Aid Other and then Aid Self and then Field Medic. But I would never take Resuscitate just for that reason. If I wanted to resurrect people, I'd have another class that did it. But thank you to those that do use it. Now, what I don't have here is the incarnate abilities such as Barrier. Barrier also gives you, depending on the level, +1 or +2 res to those around you when you use that incarnate ability if you bring it up the right side of the tree. I am going to make an incarnate video at some point, but I wasn't able to pull that up for this one here. But that was every single resurrection power that I could find. Let me know if I missed one. I don't think that I did, but post down in the comments if you think that I missed one. I think I got them all. And thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in a little bit.